Toys in the Attic, take two. One, two, one.
Hello guys,
Hello, hello. Hey, what's up?
how's it going?
All right, bro. How do you pronounce your name? Baptiste?
Yes, indeed, Baptiste, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Nice to see you. Hi Bobby, hi Mark.
How are you?
How are you? I'm doing good. Where are you guys calling from?
I'm not. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm Long Island, New York, right outside of Manhattan.
All right. What about you, Bobby?
The toilet.
You got a very nice toilet with wooden ceiling. I wish I had the same.
I'm in the great state of New Jersey. Probably about 50 miles, 60 miles from New York, from Mark.
All right. Okay. So, how are you guys doing in those crazy times?
Oh, it's definitely crazy. You know, it's New York is, I guess, what they call a hot spot with the coronavirus, and you know, it's very bad where I am. So luckily, I'm healthy. You know, just staying indoors, dealing with Blitz on a daily. Blitz, what the hell are you doing right now?
I had to get some water. Sorry.
So,
I wasn't talking. I figured I could multitask.
you know, so yeah, it's just staying indoors, and you know, fortunately, we're putting out the BPMD record, so it's definitely keeping me busy, to say the least.
Yeah, I assume so. Okay, so before Bobby gets ready, I had a question for you, Mark. You revealed in the PR statement for BPMD that it was your son that inspired you to start the band and record the album.
Yeah.
Would you say that your son is an exception at having you as a father, meaning that he likes rock and roll and vintage music, or do you think
Am I an
that
exceptional dad? He shook his head no.
Yeah, okay. Okay, next question. No. So
No.
would you say that he's an exception, you know, being 8 years old and knowing about this music from the
Yeah.
70s?
Well, we have a rule in my house, and I have a nice big pickup truck, and no one's allowed to touch the radio besides me.
Okay.
It's been that way since the day both of my kids were born, and so they grew up listening to what I listened to. You know, Motorhead, Sabbath, Maiden, Beatles, Skinner, ZZ Top, and everything in between. So, and they love it. You know, especially my little guy. He loves the Beatles. The Beatles is one of his favorite bands. And last summer we were sitting out in my backyard right over there, and you know, Skinner Saturday Night Special was on the radio, and he said, you know, you guys should play that song. And then obviously it wouldn't work for my other band. And then I just called Blitz and said, hey man, what do you think about doing something like this? And then here we are, not even a year later.
Okay, so it went well. Do you play Name That Tune games with him? Like because I saw Mike did that with his son and his daughter. So do you play that kind of game with him as well?
Nah, I don't go to that. You know, Portnoy has some serious OCD issues. So
You can't make fun of a guy who doesn't have the chance to defend himself.
I'll make fun of it. It's open in BPMD. It's open season.
Okay.
No, but I don't. You know, I don't go to that extent. No, we you know, I'll go, hey, you know who this band is or this song is, and they'll answer it. So it's not really a game per se.
Okay. So in this album, you cover legendary bands from the 70s in the genre of hard rock. But would you consider, before we go more in depth into the record, would you guys consider in the future maybe doing metal versions of pop tunes like some metal bands did? I'm thinking of Children of Bottom did that a dozen years ago with Oops, I Did It Again. So is this something that you guys might want to do in the hypothetical future?
No, thanks.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm. You know what? The whole reason I was attracted to this project. I mean, when Mark brought it up to me, I think Son said something to him at 5:30. I think I was on the phone with him at 6:30. I mean, so this is how quick this developed. And the reason I was interested in it was very simple, and that's because this was shit I was cut from. I mean, I knew this stuff as a young man, and had a great attraction to it from that age. I sang American Band in the shower when I was 14 years old. You know, this is not something that is not part of my DNA. So
yeah, that's when
the pop song, for instance,
14. You're showing your age now.
I'm showing experience. It's different. I'm showing when I'm wise enough to talk as opposed to listening. For instance, jeez, this fucking guy, I'll tell you, Baptiste, this fucking guy, I don't know why I work with this fucking prick. But in any case, I came in here back in here because I could hear my voice echoing outside. These songs for me were part of my introduction into music. I knew some of them cold when they were brought up. I mean, all of us picking two songs, I knew half of them without really having to work on them. So having it as part of you is an easier way to present it than, let's say, reimagining something that I'm just not into. That being most of those pop songs that you're referring to.
How about you, Mark?
You know, I love, I'm not as, I guess the word is wise as Blitz in my years of age. But I grew up on this stuff. You know, I grew up Skinners and ZZ Top. I love Cactus. I love Mountain. I love Van Halen. I mean, I love all those bands. That's what I listen to still to this day. You know, if you were to ask me the newest record I listen to right now, it probably came out in the mid '80s. It's just who I am, what attracts me to music. You know, with these songs, it was an easy thing to do, just because we know these songs are ingrained in our DNA. You know, from Blitz's old age in childhood to my young age in childhood, it was it's just a natural. It was just easy for us to do.
He's specifically referring to ABBA's Dancing Queen because that's what he wants to be.
What, dancing or being a queen?
Hey, you never know.
Okay.
But I think that you're getting part of the reason that this works for us is that it was supposed to be fun, and being able to have fun with each other is, it's a great motivator because it just kind of relieves the tension around the whole thing. It's four guys picking 8 songs and then voting on 2 more and saying, let's have a hell of a lot of fun with this and make this the best we can. Let's reimagine them, keep their integrity, and present them in 2020 as opposed to 1973. So it's kind of a cool concept. And if you overthink it, you fuck it up. It's just how I kind of said it right there. Let's just make this right.
Yeah, and there was no pressure. We went into this no pressure. We self-financed the whole record. You know, we didn't have a record label. We didn't have anything. We didn't even have ambitions, I think, at that point in time to go, we're going to sign a deal. We didn't. It was just 4 dudes who made a record, for peace of mind or self-enjoyment or whatever you want to call it. But that's really all it was. And it's still to this day, still no pressure, no stress. And it's been a blast so far. It's been fun.
Yeah. I mean, it really shines through when you listen to the very first track. When you do your introduction, Bobby, seems like you guys are having a lot of fun, and Also, yeah, you had no particular pressure because you didn't have to pay for a studio since you recorded at Mike's home studio in Pennsylvania, and as you said, you didn't have a record label when you started recording. So how did you present the idea to how did you pitch this album to the label?
I think that we had searched out various labels to see if there was interest, and we got bites all over the place. But I think that when we presented it, Mark and I presented it to Napalm through a mutual contact, good friend of ours. They got the idea. They understood that this was four guys who did this because they had nothing to lose, but just have a good fucking time doing it. And if that translated through it, they saw the value in this. So the value was not, listen, we want to take the release of this seriously, but the seed that this grew from was four guys, one case of beer, having a good fucking time. And if that comes through with great presentation, great production, then we have something special on our hands.
Well, I could definitely tell you Bobby was wrong on one thing. There was a lot more than one case of beer. That I know for a fact.
I meant per man.
No pressure at all. And it's, I think that translates when you listen to the record. You could hear the fun we're having. I think you could hear the tightness, and that is because we were at Mike's house together. As we were arranging the songs, Mike was recording drums. So you're hearing him recording live to Phil, myself, and Bobby, which is definitely a huge plus when it comes to doing records, and especially in this day and age where a lot of people kind of go off on their own. And we did that to a certain level as well, but the nucleus or the foundation of this record was recorded live together.
Yeah, as you said, you could have. I mean, you could have you could have done your parts each at your specific homes, but it was important for you to gather and do this live.
Well, we did the drum tracks live. Once the drum tracks were set, I mean, if that's a foundation, then we went to other places and worked on the individual parts. So it was a one day of completing those drum tracks. And then Mark's taking those cuts and going to put some bass on it with his engineer. I'm doing vocals. Phil's working in San Francisco. But if you have the original, if you have the foundation of the house being done in that live situation, it translates to what follows that. For instance, the vocals, for instance, the bass. So it gave us more time to just kind of reimagine those songs instead of saying, okay, we're going to record them all live right here, right now. Because I think that it would have been, I don't think it would have had the power that the record has. It has the basis of a 1970s jam in it, but manufactured after that in individual studios.
Okay, let's talk about the songs now. When you start a cover band, everybody gets very pumped up, very enthusiastic. But when it comes to picking up the songs, one might accept some tough arguments, and maybe people start fighting over the choices. But for you guys, it was different. You had a rule from day one. Everybody picks up two songs, the other have nothing to say about it. And then you picked up together the last two. Yep. So could you tell us about your own choices for the album? Let's start with you, Bobby.
Oh, with me.
Are you deaf?
Hello? Is there someone in the house with me?
Your voices.
Someone's in the bathroom with me. I picked Never in My Life by Mountain, and Evil by a band called Cactus, both Long Island, New York bands. These were songs I was made aware of in my youth. So it was a fun experience for me to think, okay, it's 2019 when we were recording this. I get to go back to 1973 in my head when I was first presented with these songs. So really, it was a journey of moving back in time for me. I picked the songs because my voice is specifically cut for those songs. Besides just liking those songs, I've got a very gritty approach to what I do. It's an identifiable voice. I thought that was similar to the way that the Mountain song was cut and also the Cactus song. But when I looked into the Cactus song deeper, and I knew this prior to picking it, this song is an old blues standard, Willie Dixon standard, reinvented by Howlin' Wolf, then reinvented by Cactus in the 1970s. Now BPMD in 2019. So the song has been on even a longer journey than I've been on, which is kind of a cool way of looking at making something to some degree immortal, which music should be. Not specifically that song, but music in general. So when we had finished it, when we had gotten into this, I said, man, this is just fucking, I'm all over this thing like white on rice. You know what I mean? It was just, it was made, that presentation that Mike, Mark, and Phil put together with a newfound energy, a reimagination, gave me the opportunity to do stuff I do best, or what I've done over the years best. So that was the reason I picked those two songs, because they fit me well.
Okay. What about you, Mark?
Well, for me, I kind of had to pick Saturday Night Special. That was the catalyst that inspired this entire project. I'm a huge Skynyrd fan, huge ZZ Top fan. Two of my favorite bands. With Skynyrd, it's actually funny. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Leonard Skynyrd, but those early records, Nothing Fancy, which Saturday Night Special's on, Street Survivors, Pronounced Leonard Skynyrd, those records, they're 3 guitar player band during that era of Leonard Skynyrd. Sometimes, even earlier, they had 4 guitar players recording. So I was like, wow, this would be really cool to be a 1 guitar player band to try to do this. I didn't think of that song with the bass in mind at all. I thought about it as a song as a whole. How could we redefine this song, modernize it, and give it that metal edge? Hence, you hear double bass, you hear the chunky, you're hearing those triplets, and you're hearing the chugging. So I didn't think about that as far as myself goes as a bassist. I just had this vision for a song. I guess that's where my songwriter chops come in, with MA and writing with MA. I kind of listen things as a whole, opposed to one particular instrument. And then with Beer Drinkers, I was selfish on that one. I wanted to noodle away. I went into that song without writing a single note down, without charting what I was going to do. I went in and I recorded that one take. And just, you hear me and Phil trading bass and guitars back and forth. Portnoy is going he's all over the place, especially during the lead breaks of that song. Bobby's screaming his ass off on that song, and it's kind of like a freight train. And that's what I wanted. It's, if you could imagine a heavy metal thrash jam band, that's what that song kind of is, because we're all going in separate directions, but yet it kind of comes back as to one whole there. And that's really was my vision for those 2 songs. Now, with the rest of the material, I had to identify myself as a bassist. What's going to make the song stand out? How do I fill the space with a 1 guitar player band, but yet keeping the integrity intact? And that was kind of my thought process towards not only my 2 picks, but the whole record.
Okay. And were you surprised by some of your peers' choices as covers?
Yep. Phil Demmel. Again, West Coast versus East Coast mentality, I guess. Mike and I are both from Long Island, New York. Blitz is from Jersey, close. We're all from New York, if you want to kind of talk about the region. Phil's 3,000 miles away. And he grew up in a mountain and cactus he wasn't familiar with. It's a whole nother world over there for him. And so he picked Van Halen. Were kings in the 70s on the West Coast. So he went with Van Halen, DOA, and Blue Oyster Cult, which ironically is a Long Island, New York band, which I guess it was a lot bigger on the West Coast than they were on the East Coast. So he went that route, and those two songs were they made me think before I went in and recorded them, because number one, I've never heard Tattoo Vampire in my life before that. Number two, I knew DOA, but I never learned a Van Halen song on bass ever. So I really had to kind of go in and figure out what the hell I was going to do.
Okay. What about you, Bobby?
You know, I tend to agree with him. I mean, I was aware of the songs. I never thought there were going to be picks because, you know, when Mike stood up, and his picks were Toys in the Attic and Wang Dang by Ted Nugent. And these were songs that were really ingrained in this area at that particular time. I mean, they're both iconic. I mean, the world knows them. But for me, much more so than DOA and Tattooed Vampire. I was aware of both songs, but they weren't the songs that I was thinking would fit into this record. But ironically, they do, because the idea was about how four of us would present those songs. So they were the hardest challenges for me. But I think that the outcome is what dictates its success or its failure. And in this case, it was successful. So Phil had the insight to understand that he wanted to do it with a passion. And I think the rest of us picked up that passion and turned it into something special.
All right. I was surprised not to see any Sabbath or Zeppelin song in the set list. But was it like a common agreement between yourself not to pick two obvious choices? Like
Made in America. Made in America.
Yeah,
this is only Made in America songs on this.
Yeah, the one of the other rules was it had to be released in the 1970s. So you basically had from January 1st, 1970 until December 31st, 1979. The music had to be released there, and they had to be an all-American band. Those were the rules, which was tough because, I mean, my favorite bands of all time are from England. You know, Maiden and Sabbath, Purple, Priest and Queen, and it just, the list goes on. And that's hopefully going to be coming up next. But it was tough to narrow it down to those specific American bands. One of my favorite bands of all time from America, who was huge in the 70s, we didn't do, which is the Eagles. I love the Eagles. Joe Walsh from the James Gang is on there, but we didn't do an Eagles song per se, which, you know, there's a lot of bands that we kind of, I wouldn't say left out, but when you only have two picks, it's
you make a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of this was a game. If you look at it as, okay, you get two picks and you can't veto anyone's pick. So it was a game. It wasn't just, oh, this is great for us and that's great for us and everyone talking. It's just, you have to now think, okay, I know the song, but I'm unfamiliar with the presentation. So now I have to learn. So that becomes your task, or my task, for instance, with DOA or with Tattooed Vampire. But maybe Cactus and Mountain were Phil's tasks, you know, to learn those two tunes. So it became this kind of game where we could surprise each other with how we reimagined the song to be in 2019.
Okay. And I also noticed that you guys made a reference to Zeppelin, talking about Led Zeppelin. You made a reference to it with the intro of Good Times, Bad Times at some points. So it was nice little touch, nice little reference.
Well, if you look, you know, there's a Rainbow reference in there. You know, there's a Zeppelin reference, there's a Who reference. Yeah, we love that music. You know, Rainbow, I mean, you know, Rainbow could be considered a band from the UK and a band from America, because Ronnie James Dio is from New York.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Blackmore's from England. So where does that lie? You know what I mean? There's a lot of circumstances like that. You know, but yeah, man, we all love Zeppelin. I mean, you can't deny that. But the goal for this record was really to narrow it down, because if we just said we're going to make a covers record of 10 songs from the 70s, we'd be here still fighting over the music.
Yeah.
And this also gives us the opportunity to revisit the UK in the 1970s. For instance, we could follow this up with Made in the UK, the 70s. And how many choices would we have? We'd have Status Quo. You could do early Fleetwood Mac. You could do, oh God, it goes Thin Lizzy. It could go on for forever. And I think that that's the fun thing about this is that even though you want it of the highest presentation and quality, the seed starts from fun. That this is cool that this happens. And if you can hear that come through with high presentation, then why not do Made in the UK and take it from our perspective of that seed of fun and then just making it bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk next year.
It's a date.
Hopefully you would have moved out of your bathroom, Bobby.
I live in here now. I got a little problem, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Spares the details.
It's my office. It's my office. It's not my. Excuse me. So on the Status Quo song.
All right. Well, guys, thanks a lot for your time. Before I leave you to your other interviews, I'd like to know if you guys are planning on doing some live shows in the future when the crisis is over.
Sure. Is there a plan? Not concrete. Obviously, we all have other schedules. We'd like to get together and do specialty shows, possibly European festivals, possibly cruises, something that we can, or something we can, couple together, whether it be something that Mark's doing or that Phil's doing, and then the rest of us come in and then do a secondary show with whoever's there. For instance, at Wacken, or for instance at Hellfest, something like so. So I think it would be valuable. I think it would be interesting to those who'd be able to see, let's say, one of these sets that we're going to do, because there's not going to be full tours. There'll be for sure festivals and specialty shows.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Anything to add?
No, I agree. And plus, this year unfortunately shot. There's not going to be any shows in 2020, which sucks. And we did have plans to hit this summer. I'm hoping we get to go out there, and not only with BPMD, but all of our other respected bands and other bands. I'm just hoping touring could resume as a whole at one point soon. But I just, this year is done, and hopefully in 2021 we could, once this shit kind of slows down and calms down and it kind of gets under control, we could get out there and play.
Yeah. A thought came into my head. You don't appreciate something as much until it's been taken away from you. Not necessarily just Bobby Blitz sitting in his bathroom, but Baptiste and Mark and the rest of the fucking world and the metal community. And I think that we all took for granted the fact that there would always be shows, and that it would always be the same way and always grow. And one of the things I miss the most in this personally is the fact that I'm sorry, no, you can't do that right now. That makes me want it even more so. So I think that from where I sit, and I consider myself part of the metal community, not someone who's aside or above it, that the majority of metalheads feel exactly the same way. So when this does come back and we have the opportunity to do it as a group, and I'm talking about all of us collectively, I think we're going to appreciate it even more so, and I think it will come back stronger than we left it before these shitty times that we live in.
Tell you what, once those shows start happening and we're all playing again, I think you're going to get a lot more aggressive shows, meaning in our playing, our presentation on stage, because we're going to be amped to be out there playing,
Yeah, and the audience would be as well. Finally getting out. I can't wait to do that.
I agree.
Okay. Well, guys, I had a lot of fun talking with you today. It was great. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna wish you guys and your families and friends well. And please say hello and pay my tribute to Phil and Mike. And be well. And hopefully, I'll see you guys in Europe and in Hellfest if you next year if you come.
Great, thank you.
Merci
Thanks a
beaucoup.
De rien, de rien. Bobby.
Au revoir.
Thank you.